Lenny slept little. Most of the night was spent watching challenge videos. There was the Mentos challenge, where you put Mentos in a Coke bottle and try to chug it before it explodes. Lenny watched as two young brothers went the extra mile and drank a 2-liter bottle of Coke with an entire pack of Mentos. By the end of the video, the younger brother looked like he wanted to puke. There was the Carolina Reaper challenge. The Carolina Reaper is the world's hottest pepper, bred by some guy who calls himself a quote-unquote mad scientist. Apparently, these peppers are so hot they're grown for military-grade pepper spray. Still, that didn't stop people from doing the Carolina Reaper challenge. Lenny set up his webcam as he waited anxiously for his jar of peppers. Now, these peppers were not just any pepper you could buy at the store. Not that Lenny would do that anyways. These peppers, they needed to be ordered straight from the breeder himself, the so-called quote-unquote mad scientist. Lenny lacked patience and as a result paid double the standard shipping rate to have the peppers shipped directly to him overnight. Lenny's phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email for a shipment. The email read, "Dear valued customer, we regret to inform you that we are receiving a large number of orders, and as a result, your shipment may be delayed for a maximum of 2 days. We understand this may be frustrating and apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused. We appreciate your understanding and look forward to your business in the future. Sincerely, the mad scientist." "Fuck!" Lenny shouted as he slammed down his fists, breaking his keyboard in half. Chapter 8. Lenny sat by his kitchen window, waiting, watching for the delivery truck carrying his peppers to pull up. He barely slept the past few nights. The words of Purple Panda 9813 played in his mind over and over again until language itself lost all meaning. "All right, big shot. Let's see you do it." Those words cut deep. Deeper than Lenny would like to admit. He couldn't rest until Purple Panda 9813 knew what it felt like to feel like a fool in front of the whole world. Lenny snapped out of his daze by the sound of a car door slamming shut. It was the delivery driver, a tall woman with red, frizzy, spring-loaded hair and a wide, muscular frame. She must be in good shape from lifting packages all day, Lenny thought to himself. He looked down at his overextended stomach and thought for a moment how life could have been different had he taken another path. The woman carried a little brown box in her hand and gently placed it on his doorstep. Lenny's phone buzzed, revealing a notification saying, "Your package has arrived," with a picture of his decrepit porch with the rotting wood and broken stairs. A glimpse of the woman's thigh was in the photograph. Lenny screenshotted the picture, saving it for a later date. Lenny walked through the sea of garbage, passing through the skeletal frame that was once a family pet. Rats scurried from bags left for them to feast upon. He opened the door just enough to grab his package and closed it quickly, hoping no one saw him. He was not much of a planner. Not usually, at least, but today was different. Guided by his hatred for Purple Panda 9813, Lenny set up his webcam and even went as far as adjusting the light to ensure the picture quality is clear. Lenny's biggest fear is to be called out as a fraud. Ensuring the quality of the shot was perfect was his best chance to eliminate any idea that there would be any tomfoolery or so-called quote-unquote camera tricks, whatever that meant. He started the webcam program and a little red light flashed on. This was an indication a recording was in session. Something about the red light stunned Lenny. He knew from this point forward, anything he said or did would be encapsulated forever in time, to be ridiculed. He took a deep breath, his chest rattling from the mucus buildup in his lungs, and thought to himself, "Don't fuck this up." Instead of pre-recording and editing a video, Lenny wanted to live stream the challenge so people could watch and comment in real time. For those who missed it, The live stream would be saved and uploaded to carve out Lenny's legacy in history forever. No big deal. He hit the big red button and said, "Go live." It was showtime. Lenny saw himself in a little box in the corner of the screen with a little flashing red button that said, "Live." On the right side of the screen was a section dedicated to a chat room. Here, users could ask questions to the streamer or talk amongst themselves in real time. Lenny looked at himself and saw a man desperate for attention. Lonely, scared of dying alone, unknown, forever, forgotten to history. Lenny took a deep breath and said, "You may not know me." Fuck, that's dumb. Of course no one knows you. Why would you say that, you idiot? He thought to himself. He noticed a disheveled, obese man staring at the screen. While lost in thought, he forgot he was live streaming to the whole world. Lenny took another deep breath, his chest rattling like a xylophone. Okay, no bullshit. So I was watching Tyler Zeit doing the habanero challenge, and fuck, really, I didn't think it was all that impressive. I mean, I eat habaneros all the time, so I called him out, and you guys didn't like that, and some of you specifically, Purple Panda, whatever the fucking numbers he is. Lenny stared intently at the screen. "I know you're watching." He lifted the unopened package in his hand. "See this?" He tore open the package with his teeth. Pain shot through his gums as the pressure revealed every cavity in his mouth. His ears rang as his eyes watered from the pain, but trying to appear tough, he pushed through. Lenny removed the package containing the chilies from the box. The package was bright orange, with warning labels in big letters. "Warning, spicy," with a cartoon scientist on the front holding a smoking beaker in one hand and a chili in the other. The package read, "World famous Carolina Reaper, the world's hottest pepper." Lenny tore open the top of the bag, and the smell of the spices was enough to induce sweating. The sharp spice stung Lenny's nostrils and raised every flag in his brain, screaming, "Red alert! Don't do this!" Lenny pulled out a misshapen tiny pepper from the bag. Its bright red skin almost glowed in his hand. Lenny held it by the stem to the camera, holding it in place until the camera autofocused on the pepper in the foreground. The capsaicin of the pepper was so high, Lenny's skin began to tingle and burn. He looked at the camera with pepper in hand and said, This is the Carolina Reaper, the hottest pepper in existence." Lenny saw activity in the chat window. There were 2 users. One said, "You're not going to eat that." The other replied, "Please don't encourage him. He can die." Lenny continued, "These peppers were bred from military-grade pepper spray. But fuck it." He popped one in his mouth and chewed. Lenny expected an overwhelming spice given their reputation, but it almost had a bitter taste more than anything. He swallowed and quickly grabbed another one, chewing that just as fast. Before Lenny swallowed, he popped 3 more in his mouth, just to show how tough he really was. The people in the chat continued, "No! Holy fuck, did he just eat 5? Is he retarded? They aren't that spicy," Lenny thought to himself. Suddenly, he was overtaken by the hiccups. Lenny's mouth began to feel a burning sensation that crawled down his throat and esophagus to his stomach. He looked at the camera. That wasn't so bad. Lenny read the chat. "You fucking moron, it's a delayed reaction." Lenny looked at the package. It read, "Warning, spice will be delayed. Wait up to 2 minutes before consuming more." Lenny's heart began to race. His skin became red hot. Profusely sweating, his esophagus felt like it was on fire and closing. His stomach ached as if he swallowed razor blades dipped in acid. The thumping of his heart was so loud he wondered if the camera could pick up on it. His vision began to blur. The pain was the worst thing he's ever felt. "Am I dying?" he thought to himself, somewhat okay with the result if it meant an end to this torment. The thought quickly took a back seat as the spins took Lenny's attention. Blood pooled in his mouth and throat as the spice stripped away whatever layers of skin Lenny had left. He tried to calm himself, but any time he tried to take in a breath, his lungs felt tight and like they were filled with bile. His throat sealed. Nothing would go down, not even precious oxygen. Lenny felt like he was going to black out. His vision became a tunnel. Lenny looked at chat and could barely make out words. Without warning, he projectile vomited blood and bile all over himself and blacked out. Lenny was deep in the dream world. He dreamt of hot springs in the middle of his living room. The steam whispered into the air as the warm water brought his chilled bones to a toasty temperature. In this dream, it was snowing heavily, which may raise questions, but in dreamland, snow inside is no more obscure than Lenny's house being clean enough to install a hot spring in the middle of the living room, really. Lenny snorted, awoke, discovering the warm sensation was a pool of his own bile. The greens and browns mixed with the half-digested chili in a mosaic pattern. Lenny de la Art. He looked to the top left of the screen and saw a flashing red bell with 100 plus notifications. Curious, Lenny clicked the bell icon. What the fuck? He closed the page and reopened it. The number remained the same. Clicking the page labeled Statistics, Lenny was surprised to see under View Count the numbers read 200,000 with 15,000 comments. A smile drew across his face. He cackled manically to himself in a fit of glee. Are you fucking kidding me? Lenny clicked the comment section and read what his loyal followers had to say about his new fame. The Jewish Nazi wrote, "Good shit, man. You got balls." Purple Panda 9813 said, "Bravo. Credit where credit is due." Pink Camino wrote, "LOL, you're fucking nuts." To Lenny's surprise, Tyler commented and wrote, "Great job. You crushed it, my man. Hope to see more challenges. Welcome to the community." Lenny sat back in his chair. Crumbs crunched under his wheels as the foam inside the chair hissed as he repositioned. The community, huh? Lenny smiled for the first time since he could remember. Lenny was never part of a community before. This could only mean one thing. He opened a word processor and at the top of the page wrote, "Challenge ideas." Chapter 10. Lenny's stomach grumbled. He gazed at the clock. It was noon. Time for a thawed pizza. He made his way to the kitchen, avoiding the bags of food, crushed boxes, and whatever was left of the skeletal frame that was once the family pet. The kitchen smelled like decay, but he paid no mind. The counter was covered in discarded pizza boxes. Among them was a fresh pile of thawed pizzas sitting on top of one another like stacks of paper. He grabbed the top pizza, supporting the bottom, as the thawed crust broke apart in his hands. Suddenly, he saw something move. Without thinking, he reacted by smacking the counter. It was a centipede. And not just any centipede, but the biggest, gangly-legged son of a bitch Lenny has ever seen. It had a tan-brown exoskeleton with stilts for legs. The body was the size of half a hot dog with antennas as long as his index finger. The centipede was so large, his smack didn't even kill it. The centipede jerked and twitched with the few legs that weren't broken or dismembered. Lenny looked to his left where a mason jar, once used for food, now sat amongst the pile of dirty dishes and rusted silverware. The mason jar had multiple colonies of mold fighting in what one could only imagine was a war for territory. Lenny grabbed the jar and unscrewed the rusted lid. Flakes of rust and mildew spores puffed out of the jar in a cloud of smoke, which quickly dissipated. He grabbed the now disabled hot dog-sized centipede and forced it into the jar. Its bulbous frame barely fit. "Don't worry, buddy. You won't be in here for very long." Lenny laughed as he carried the jar under his arm, supporting the pizza with 2 hands, preventing the thawed dough from falling apart. Lenny made it safely to his desk and placed the greasy thawed pizza on his keyboard. Remnants of thawed cheese fell into the cracks of his keys as he placed the jar on his desk. Lenny looked at the jar and said, "You're going to make me famous." Chapter 11. Thunder as loud as dynamite awoke Lenny from his sleep. His saliva formed a thick crust that ran from his mouth down to his keyboard. As he lifted his face to return to the land of the living, he released the keys he was pressing while he was passed out. The computer screen lit up, and what Lenny saw, he couldn't believe. 1.2 million? He said under his breath. Lenny rubbed his eyes to confirm he was truly awake. 1.2 million! He said the numbers out loud again, but it didn't make them feel any more real. Lenny clicked the tab and titled Comments. 9,300? Lenny cackled manically to himself, a cackle so wild that if anyone heard, they'd think he's gone mad. Lenny read the comments. Ticklefucker wrote, "Its legs were still moving as you chewed. Fucking gross, man." Modern Nazi wrote, "They eat centipedes in Thailand all the time. Big fucking deal." Purple Panda 9813 wrote, "You've outdone yourself again. Challenge idea? I dare you to eat a stick of used deodorant." Purple Panda 9813's comment remained at the top with the most likes. 726 to be exact. A chain of comments followed his comment in a thread. The chain was a list of recommended things to eat. 914 comments to be exact. The list contained everything from lighter fluid to Lenny's own urine. Lenny read through the comments delighted to receive so much attention. For the first time in his life, he was good at something. And even more so, he was finally a part of something. Lenny knew he needed to up the ante. The rest of the day was spent brainstorming ideas for the next video. 3 months later. "Can you guys see me?" asked Lenny as the comments flooded in. "You look great. What happened? Are you on coke?" Lenny adjusted the camera to point down. He lifted his shirt to reveal folds of skin that once held 60 pounds. He slapped the flabby skin. "She's gone, boys," Lenny chuckled to himself. He lifted the camera to his face. "Some of you may have been wondering where I've been the past week. Well, I took a quick trip down south and got lipo." Lenny waited with a bated breath for the comments to flood in. "You're still fat as fuck. You're still ugly as shit, but we love you. Happy for you, man. You look great, Lenny." He watched as thousands of comments darted by. He looked back at the camera. "I have a surprise for you guys." Lenny lifted a jar of pinkish white liquid that appeared viscous in nature. "This is 22 pounds of fat the doctor removed from me. Now, normally, they don't let you keep this." Lenny winked at the camera, but, life finds a way, if you know what I mean. The comments flooded in. "Do it! That's fucking disgusting! Eat it, bitch! Lenny, that's gross!" Lenny screwed off the top of the jar. The comments went wild. "Do it! No, throw it away! Fuck, he's gonna do it! Drink it!" He put the jar to his mouth and could smell the acrid stench of blood and decay. The fat was not stored in a solution and began to decompose moments upon entering the jar. Lenny hesitated. Then suddenly, he began to drink. The pink liquid spilled out the side of his mouth. Comments poured in synchronistically in tune with the contents of the jar. The lipid smoothie resembled the texture of gelatin if you cooked Jell-O in grease instead of water. As it slid down his throat, his mouth became coated in a waxy substance. The bitterness was nauseating. But Lenny has a legacy to maintain, and on top of that, he built a tolerance to texture and taste. At this point, he's a pro. Lenny finished the contents of the jar and let out a big, "ah." as one would drinking a cold glass of iced water on a hot summer day. The comments went wild, and the sound of a bell began to chime, only to continually be cut off by the sound of the bell being rung again and again. Lenny looked at the comments section. Currently, the donation tab was up to $1,500, and it kept rising. With the confidence of a celebrity at a charity telethon, Lenny said, "Keep those donations coming." He let out a large belch that shook the house. Some lard tried to escape his esophagus, filling his mouth with a burning, bitter taste, but he quickly swallowed it back down. "Okay, boys, let me know in the comments what to eat next, and while I can't make any promises, I will do what I can. See you gents tomorrow." Lenny gave the camera a peace sign and palmed the webcam, shutting off the live stream. With the fat still lingering in his hand, Lenny pulled down his sweat-stained boxers and began to masturbate. Chapter 12. The bulb clicked as light poured into the room. A tall woman with jet black hair and skin the seductive color of caramel adjusted her chair, trying to find a spot on the floor where she wouldn't catch garbage under the legs of the chair. Her name was Sharon Estevez, and she was a journalist for Splat Media, a news organization with heavy emphasis on internet culture. Despite some pieces being about frivolous topics like keyboard-playing chihuahuas, she took her job mostly seriously and expected her team to do the same. Sorry about the mess. It's not normally this bad," Lenny said in an embarrassed tone. Sharon smiled. "I've seen worse." She hadn't. Sharon looked at a skinny man in a black slim t-shirt with black jeans that, if Lenny didn't know better, were painted on. The man had a well-trimmed auburn beard with a purple beanie with a pride flag pinned slanted to the left. He was known as Carl. Just Carl. No one knew his last name, and he preferred it that way. "I'm more than a name," rhetoric he would repeat at the occasional dinner party. He may have thought of himself as more than a name, but for today, he was a camera operator, and nothing more. Lenny watched nervously as the man adjusted the settings of the camera. The woman noticed Lenny's eyes darting back and forth like a lone deer in bear country. Sitting across from him, Sharon placed a hand on his knee to gather his attention. Lenny locked eyes with Sharon. She could sense his nerves. This wasn't her first rodeo, and the telltale sign of, "I can't do this," brewed beneath the surface, waiting to break free in the form of a violent panic attack. Hoping to quell the beast, Sharon said, "Don't be nervous." There was a maternal tone to her voice. Something about not what she said, but the way she said it comforted Lenny. "You have been the most requested interview for months. You're going to do great." He forced a smile, but said not a word. His mouth was sandpaper. His heart thumped with rigidity that felt unnatural. Lenny looked down and saw his stretched-out Iron Maiden t-shirt stained with years of food, and sweat quivered with the rhythm of his rapid heart. His hands were clammy. To help, he ran his hands from his knees to his crotch, hoping the friction and material would absorb some of the moisture bleeding from his hands. The sweat left a trail like the mucus produced by a slug. Lenny noticed and quickly crossed his hands. As skin met skin, the moisture rubbed together, creating an uncomfortable wet warmth that felt as slimy as it did hot. Sharon turned to the camera operator who was adjusting the lens. "How we doing, Carl?" There was a twinge of impatience in her voice. Carl said nothing and continued to make adjustments. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Carl stuck his hand out, giving a thumbs up, and said, "We're good." The woman turned to Lenny. "We're going to keep the camera rolling. I'll ask some questions, answer best you can." Sharon glanced down at her notes. Lenny tried to see what she was reading, but it looked like scribbles from a bleeding fountain pen on an expensive moleskin notebook. As Sharon's eyes darted from left to right, reading the notes, she mouthed what she read under her breath. Lenny watched her plump lips open and close as they formed the syllables, hypnotized by her beauty. Lenny imagined what life would be with someone like her. How happy he would be. How great the sex was. He was startled by her voice. "Don't worry about how you sound. We'll fix everything in post." Lenny's mind raced. How long was I staring? Did she know? God, she thinks I'm an idiot. Her voice snapped Lenny back to reality again. Of the 20 questions, we'll probably keep, like top 6 answers or so. It's usually how it's done. Lenny nodded. "How you feeling?" she asked with real concern in her voice. Lenny said nothing. She noticed his fidgety behavior. Still a little nervous? Nervous, Lenny thought. He wanted to crawl out of his skin. The thought of suicide was a sweet embrace if it meant he didn't have to be here doing this interview any longer. Lenny felt a tightness in his chest. His breath was shallow and labored. He knew it was only anxiety, but wished it was more. At least, if it was a heart attack, he could get out of this godforsaken interview. Lenny tried to collect himself. In his best calm voice, he said, "I'm ready." Lenny was lost in her dark chestnut brown eyes. He imagined a life with her. 2 kids, a clean house with a golden retriever and a white picket fence. They would attend weekly PTA meetings and charity banquets. At night they would sip expensive red wine and... "Lenny?" asked Sharon. He snapped back to reality. How long was I daydreaming, he wondered. Embarrassed, Lenny felt a wave of anxiety overtake him again. Sharon quickly noticed this and asked the question again, hoping it would bring him back to earth. "Why do you do it? Why eat all the stuff that you do?" Carl panned in for a tight shot on Lenny's face. The silence filled the room as the bright Hollywood lights blinded Lenny and made sweat race from his back down to his butt crack. He thought for a moment about how he wanted to answer. Lenny knew if he revealed the truth, he could be opening a door he may never be able to close again. His eyes wandered as he looked for the words, hoping he could pluck them out of the air. Sharon leaned in intensively. "Why do you do it?" "Legacy?" Lenny said. As the words left his mouth, even he was impressed by the confidence in his response. "What do you mean by legacy?" Sharon asked. My parents died. I realized other than them being nice people and friendly neighbors, they left really nothing to this world to be remembered by. I guess other than me, a decade from now, no one will ever know they really existed. As far as the world is concerned, their existence meant nothing. Sharon nodded intently. After I'm gone, no one will remember Ari and Pauline Whitaker. Their life amounted to nothing. Their hopes, their dreams, desires will fade away like their bodies. After I'm gone, it's like they never existed. I don't know, I guess I didn't want that for myself. I wanted people to remember Lenny Whitaker. He took a deep breath, as if a weight he's been holding for years had finally lifted. That's a deep answer. Are you always this philosophical? Lenny chuckled. Honestly, I don't even know where that really came from. I'd like to think it came from the heart, Sharon said with a smile. Lenny smiled at the thought of someone recognizing him as someone with hopes, desires, fears, and value to share with the world. For the first time in a long time, Lenny felt human. A week later, an article came out with the title, "How One Man Built His Legacy by Eating the Grossest Stuff Imaginable." The title, it was a little wordy. It was no Hemingway, but it was nothing to gawk at. Lenny's chair let out a loud squeak as he sat back. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the stench of his living room, and thought to himself, I've made it.